but most of us work at a different scale than that. So I plan to examine all three of these. If I summarized it, I'd say this. Overall, they're simply not applying the Agile principles in an economically sensible way, much like the manager of the restaurant wasn't applying those principles in an economically sensible way. All right. By principles, I mean things like these. These are categories of principles that underlie Agile. Right? It's things like variability and uncertainty, prediction and adaptation. I'm not going to go through all of these. If you want a copy of the book, it's chapter 3 that kind of works through all of these in detail. What I'm trying to suggest, though, if you don't have this understanding in place, then you lack the context for actually applying Scrum in an effective way. You'll go through the mechanics. It's what some people call cargo cult Scrum. Just kind of going through the motions, not really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. It just seems to work at times, but you don't really grasp why. Let's fill this in. Now, this is how I visualize economically sensible Scrum. There's the Scrum framework that we talked about. That framework has to reside on top of those principles. Those are the pillars on top of which all of this has to exist. And that has to be couched in the context of an economic framework. Because we have to be able to make trade-offs and do them in an economically sensible way. Don't worry, I'm going to elaborate. See, I think economics is the universal language of product development. I don't care who you are on the team. You could be technical, you could be business-oriented, it doesn't matter. The point is, everybody needs to speak it. It's sort of the lingua franca. It's the Esperanto. Right? If you're a geek, it's the Babelfish, right? That everybody has to be able to have. Here's the issue. And this is a concept I'm borrowing from Don Reinerston from his book, Principles of Product Development Flow. He talks about having this economic framework in place because we have all these variables that we're often trying to optimize. Think about why you use Agile for a moment. What was your end goal? What were you trying to achieve? Were you trying to reduce waste? Were you trying to improve cycle time, get the product out the door faster? Were you trying to up customer satisfaction, deal with variability, deal with innovation, or improve quality? And you might say yes, 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 and yes. Could be all those reasons, could be a subset of those reasons, could be reasons that aren't even up there. Here's the issue though. When we apply Scrum, we frequently have to make trade-offs. You can't sort of maximize all the variables at the same time. And it's hard to know whether or not we made the right choices unless we have a common economic framework for being able to compare them. And the observation is we need to normalize all the proxy variables into a concept called lifecycle profit space. Lifecycle profits, the total profit potential of a product over its lifetime. And the idea is that once we can convert these into the same unit of measure, we can very quickly weigh them and determine which was the better option. Without having a sound economic framework in place, we're just guessing. And most people's intuition, quite honestly, when it comes to variables like this, pretty poor. Meaning we're going to guess wrong most of the time. I'll prove to you. Let me just try and demonstrate. Think of the project you're working on right now. Think of the date it's supposed to ship. Get that in your head. All right, now I'm going to delay you for 1 month. Whatever that date was, I'm pushing you out 1 month. Doesn't matter why, I'm just pushing you out a month. What's the cost of that delay in lifecycle profits? Think about if you didn't get the product to your users for an extra month, what would that cost you in lifecycle profits? If you can't answer that question right now, you should be very concerned. And I stopped doing it because I used to do what Reinerson would do. He would ask people on the same team to give an answer, and I started doing it. And I stopped because it was embarrassing. Because I would find the same thing he did. People on the same team would give an answer that invariably varied by a factor of 50. If somebody said, oh, it's a $10,000 cost if we don't have it, someone else said $500,000. And the only thing you can conclude, people are just guessing. They don't really know. So we have to be able to make these trade-offs. When you think about it, just take waste as an example. In any organization, there's going to be multiple forms of waste. Everybody wants to reduce waste. I don't care if you use Agile or Waterfall or whatever, you still want to reduce waste. The issue is that these waste can't all be eliminated at the same time. And frequently, as one form of waste goes down, another form of waste goes exactly the other way. And until you can compare them in the same economic units, you don't actually know that you eliminated the right form of waste. So when you make decisions about how to apply Scrum, How do you know you made the right choices? Remember, you have all these different approaches you could take to how you're going to do Scrum. Did you choose good ones? How would you evaluate whether the decision you made was good? If you made a process improvement, how would you determine whether that process improvement actually gave you a benefit or did it harm you? Let's see how this plays out. That was all just to set up the concept of the economic framework. Let's apply it now. So I said the first issue that I see when I visit companies is sort of this ignorance or misapplication of core Agile principles. Meaning they either don't know about the principles or they think they do and they simply misapply them. I wonder how many of you in this one. The misunderstanding of change? Here's the perception. In Agile, we embrace change. We welcome change. So the problem, of course, and I imagine many of you have seen this, you got the business people over here going, we love Scrum. Because we make changes anytime we want. Here's the development team over here, they're going, holy crap, these people want to make changes anytime they want. You have this huge disconnect that's happening between the two. And then you have these people over here, hey, you said we're using Scrum, and Scrum's supposed to embrace the change. Embrace the change, baby, here it is. Okay. I would suggest they haven't applied economically sensible Scrum. Think about it for a moment. When you're grouping the product backlog, getting an item to the ready state, you make an investment in the item. Some level of investment. When you take it into sprint planning, your investment in that item has increased, right? Because you spend more time thinking about the item, perhaps breaking it down into tasks. When you start working on it, your investment goes up even more. And of course, when you're done, you've made the full investment. So, business people, say hi to the graph. You want to make a change here? That's likely going to cost you a little bit more than if you make the change over here. So, yes, we embrace change. But you might want to think of the economics of what you're doing before you apply that principle in an ad hoc, random fashion, because you might end up causing a lot of damage. Forget the fact for the moment that not only are you causing economic damage, what about the damage to the trust of the team? When you're in the middle of the sprint and business is flip-flopping all over the place as to what they want you to build. This only slides downhill very, very quickly. So I bet a number of you have seen that one. How about this one? The misunderstanding of just in time. Oh, Agile. Agile, I love this thing. This is just in time. Management, we don't have to do anything up front. No, I'm sorry, you want some plans up front? We don't do any of that. No, we do Agile. I hope you're not laughing at yourself, right, for being the one who says something like that. Right? So you got these people over here going, oh, we love Scrum, we do everything just in time, so any of this request for doing any work up front, we don't have to do that. This is Agile. You got these people over here saying, this sounds like total chaos to me. Now how do we bridge the disconnect? Agile is not anti-upfront. That's a misunderstanding. Right? Most people think of like a waterfall type approach as a predictive upfront approach. Try to get all those requirements done up front. Try to get the full project plan done up front. All that kind of stuff. Oh, and Agile is all just in time. Don't do any of that stuff up front. What I'm trying to suggest by the teeter-totter picture is that if you're overly aggressive on either side of that picture, you're probably unhappy. If you're overly aggressive on this side, I bet you just dip down into the guessing pool. Oh, you couldn't have known that up front, not on the first day. You're just guessing at this point. On the other hand, do nothing up front? Do it all just in time? I bet it does start to feel chaotic. Agile's not anti-upfront work. Agile's anti-upfront excessive work. The principle that most have failed to grasp is upfront work should be helpful, just not excessive. So we can find a balance here to work with our management team as opposed to one side always pushing to the extreme, a common failure that I see when I visit companies. They're still doing Scrum at the team level just fine, but think about what this causes. Oh, no, you guys can do Scrum. I worship the fact that you do Scrum, but you still have to produce all those documents up front for me. No, we don't produce any of that stuff. Not good. How about this? We have WIP, we have inventory, but it's not recognized. A core piece. Let's look at what I mean by this. Think about manufacturing for a moment. In manufacturing, the inventory in manufacturing is both physically visible and financially visible. Neither of those characteristics are true for us. I mean, think about it. It's physically visible in an obvious way. I can like walk into a manufacturing plant. I can see the stuff. I can touch the stuff. I know if we have more inventory in the factory this week than last week because there's bigger piles of stuff on the floor. It's also financially visible. Hey, CFO of a manufacturing company, how much inventory do you have in the factory this week? We have $500,000 of inventory in the factory. This person's going to give me an immediate answer to that question. Why? Inventory is a critical measure in manufacturing. It's tracked, right? They're going to know exactly what they have. Again, neither of those characteristics are true for us, and this is going to cause us significant damage. Our inventory is both physically invisible and financially invisible. It's physically invisible, again, in a somewhat obvious way. In software development, most of our inventory, bits on a disk. The code out on that server over there. The test cases that go with it. Can't really see that stuff. Although I could print it out, stuff it into a filing cabinet. I guess that makes it like a little bit more physical. Or maybe we hang some Post-it notes up on the wall. Yeah, but I'm sorry, but nobody's going to confuse my Post-it notes over here with that stuff. Right? They are not physical in anywhere near the same way. It's also financially invisible. Hey, CFO of a product development company, how much inventory do you have in product development right now? What? None. No, seriously, look at the balance sheet of the company. Find a line item on the balance sheet that says inventory and product development. You won't find it. Wrong. You have inventory all over the place. The problem is, how do you manage what you can't see? It's invisible, right? So how do you manage what you can't see? So what do we do instead? Obviously, we manage what we can see. Stay with me, I need one more slide to tie all this together. The only point of this slide was to say we have inventory. And if we don't manage it, we will have a problem. Watch the baton, not the runners. Let me ask you a question. What's the largest cost in software product development? What's the largest cost? People. Clearly, right? I mean, once I buy you your computers, put whatever software